Adonai has compassion for those who show reverence. God knows how we are fashioned. God remembers that we are dust. The days of mortals are like grass. We flourish as the flowers of the field. A wind passes over them, and they are no more, and no one can recognize where they grew. But Adonai's compassion is everlasting. God's kindness to children's children endures. To all the reverent ones, it is eternal, age after age, unchanging.
Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai, mi agor be'olecha, mi yishkon behar kodshecha. Halech tamim ufoel tzedek, v'dover emet bilvavo. Lo ragal al lishono, lo asa l're'ehu ra'a, v'cherpa lo nasa al krovo. Niv zeh be'enav nim'as, ve'et yir'ei Adonai yechabed, nishba lahara v'lo yamir. Kaspo lo natan b'neshech, v'shochad al naki lo lakach. Osa ele lo yimot leolam. A Psalm of David. Do we deserve to enter God's sanctuary? Can we merit a place in the presence of God? Live with integrity, do what is right, speak the truth without deceit, have no slander upon your tongue, do no evil to others, do not mistreat your neighbor, spurn a contemptible person, but honor those who revere Adonai. Never retract a promise once made, though it may bring you harm. Lend no money at unfair rates. Accept no bribe against the innocent. Make these deeds your own, then shall you stand firm forever.
"2,000 years ago, the sage Ben Sira wrote these words. They are as true today as they were when he first wrote them. We are all destined to die. We share it with all who ever lived, with all who ever will be. Cry for the dead. Hide not your grief. Do not restrain your mourning. But remember that continuing sorrow is worse than death. When the dead are at rest, let their memory be a source for peace, and be consoled when the soul departs. Death is better than a life of pain. Eternal rest is better than constant sickness. Let us not seek to understand what is too difficult for us, nor search for what is hidden, nor be preoccupied with what is beyond. For we have been shown more than we can comprehend. As a drop of water in the sea, as a grain of sand on the shore, are our few days in eternity. The good things in life last for a short time, but a keter shem tov, the crown of a good name, endures forever. For many generations, indeed thousands of years, in times of uncertainty and grief, our people have found comfort in the words of the book of Psalms. The 23rd Psalm in particular reminds us of a God who is a shepherd who leads us when we have lost a sense of direction, when we are bewildered by life's vicissitudes and sorrows. It reminds us that though we are called this day to walk through the valley of the shadow of death, there are places of stillness, green pastures, quiet waters. And we affirm our faith and belief in a God that will get us through this valley of the shadow of death, and in due time lead us from the valley to a hill, to the heights, where there is solace, where there is healing and comfort. The Zonnholzer will chant the words of the 23rd Psalm.
Adonai roi lo echsar minat esheyar bitzeni al mehi menuchot yinadeni Nafshi yeshovim yeshovim Yancheini v'magle tzedek Yancheini v'magle tzedek L'man shemo Kaki elech megitz al mavet Lo irara ki ata imadi Shivtecha mishatecha ima yenachamuni Tarok lefanai shulchan Negen et sorerai Nishanta Mashem Roshi Kosi Revaya Hatova Chesed Refoni Koyeme Chayai Koyeme Chayai Vishavati Mevet Adonai Liorech Yamim. A Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Roughly 15 years ago, my wife and I had lived in Jacksonville for a little under a year. The rabbis felt that it was time to give me a chance to be on my own. One rabbi went on extended vacation as he finished up a contract. The rabbi went to Camp Ramah, to Israel, which left me here for 6 weeks without a rabbi. I was a little nervous as I conducted my first solo funeral for Gloria Proctor, Goga of blessed memory. And when I finished, a little sigh of relief, having done my first eulogy, and a young Etta Fialow comes over, pats me on the back and says, "I want you to officiate at my funeral." We joked. I said we can touch base again, maybe 40, maybe 50 years. Well, Etta, I'm here today much earlier than either of us could have imagined 15 years ago. I have a lot in store for you today. I've dialed up a 98-degree forecast, the hottest day today on Jacksonville record. You probably liked that funeral that day because it was short. You might have asked for a short funeral today, so I made sure that I brought 4 of your favorite rabbis along for the ride as well. Luckily, we're indoors. I'd like to point out that my eulogy this morning is in Georgia font. This space that we're in is known as a Beit Knesset, which means a house of assembly. It also goes by another name, a Beit Midrash, a house of study, and a Beit Tfilah, a house of prayer. And through that space that you all pass by our entrance, a Beit Yahadut, a house of Judaism. For it was in this bayit, this house, that Etta found a home. Etta held many informal titles in addition to her longtime role as Judaica shop lady. She was a synagogue historian, and most importantly to me and to many others, she was a director of first impressions. Yes, it helped that the Judaica shop is the first thing you see when you walk in the front entrance, but all forms of first impressions were important to Etta. At Shabbat morning services, you would find Etta right there, to my left, holding court with a new friend. Maybe it was a student from UNF or FSCJ. Maybe it was someone exploring Judaism for the first time, an adult learner who had practiced their Hebrew earlier in the morning. Maybe it was just a new visitor to the Jacksonville Jewish Center. I experienced her warm welcome when I first interviewed in Jacksonville. It was Etta's voice in my ear as Rabbi Lubliner drove around Jacksonville for 2+ hours for a wonderful history tour. It was at Etta's beach house that Leora and I first experienced the beaches of North Florida. It was in her kitchen on Forest Circle, that will always be her home, that Etta showed me her family tree, my family tree, carefully drawn out by family archivist Blanche Slott of blessed memory. Etta made others feel at home, here in Jacksonville and here at the Jacksonville Jewish Center. In a moment, I'll share remarks by a longtime friend, Rabbi Matt Berkowitz. For Etta housed rabbi after rabbi, speaker after speaker, each establishing their own special relationship with Etta. The writer Achad Ha'am once said, "More than the Jewish people have kept Shabbat, Shabbat has kept the Jews." I like to think that more than the Judaica shop kept Etta, Etta kept the Judaica shop. I've learned that there are gift shops. Always been a fan of gift shops. You can ask my parents. You can't beat a good tchotchke anywhere. But then there are Judaica shops, purveyors of something so much more sacred. But I've also come to learn that not all Judaica shops are equal. In fact, Etta was recognized for all her work by being the National Judaica Shop Chair for Women's League of Conservative Judaism, because she had a gift for Judaica shopping. She made sure we had quality products for every life cycle event, every Jewish holiday, every moment. Etta helped me on more than one occasion when I was looking for something for our family Judaica collection. And if the shop wasn't carrying it, she'd find it. Hebrew name step stools? Check. Challah board with salt insert on the side? She found it. What about last year's model of the Emmanuel Chanukiah? Sure. And it wasn't just for me. It was for things on behalf of the synagogue. Tzedakah boxes, the gift that we give on behalf of our board of directors. Etta found that. What about having a fundraiser for other communities, selling kippot and challah covers for the Abadaya community in Uganda? Of course, let's do it. She'd support Jewish and international artists, our traveling art shows, all for the sake of sisterhood, our center, and Judaism. In a world in which Amazon and Target are the registries of choice, Etta helped make Jewish ritual objects part of the fabric of the lives of those who could experience those liminal moments, the baby namings, the B'nai Mitzvah, weddings. She made ritual affordable and accessible to all. Etta created a mechanism to transport the sacred rhythms of Jewish time from inside her sacred space the Judaica shop, to outside of this building. And because of her hard work, people are proud to perpetuate their Jewish heritage. She showed that Judaism is transportable, it is living, it is breathing. Holidays and the everyday can be celebrated now in people's homes, thanks to Etta. Etta's Hebrew name, Etta, is a nickname in Yiddish for the Hebrew word Yehudit, Judith. Yehudit, Jew, a woman of strong Jewish character. Etta, you exuded Judaism in every fiber of your neshama, your soul. May your memory be for a blessing inscribed on the doorposts, the symbols, the ritual objects, and the hearts of all who knew and loved you. Amen. This time I'd like to share words of tribute by her longtime friend, Matt Berkowitz. How to bless you and say a final farewell to you, Etta, my dear students, my family, indeed my Jacksonville Ima, my role model and dear friend. The beautiful and moving midrash from Masechet Ta'anit 5b comes to mind immediately. Emshol lecha mashal mahadavar domeh. Adam shaya holech b'midvar v'haya ra'ev v'ayef v'tzameh u'matza ilan sheperotav mitukin tzuluna'eh v'matamayim overet tachtav. Achal meperotav v'shata mimemav v'yashel b'tzilo. U'shebikesh lelech amar ilan ilan b'ma avarchecha. Im omar lecha sheyu perotecha minutin Hare perotecha mitukin. She'et tzilcha na'eh, hare tzilcha na'eh. She'tehe amat hamayim overet tachtecha, hare amat hamayim overet tachtecha. Ela, yihi ratzon shekol hanitiyot shenotin mimecha, yiyu kimotcha. Avata bama avarechacha, im betorah, hare Torah. Im be'osher, hare osher. Im bevanim hare banim, ela yihi yaratzon sheyu tza'atzei ma'amecha kimotcha. To what is the matter comparable? It is comparable to one who was walking through a desert and who was hungry, tired, and thirsty. And he found a tree whose fruit were sweet and whose shade was pleasant, and a stream of water flowed beneath it. He ate from the fruits of the tree, drank from the water in the stream, and sat in the shade of the tree. And when he wished to leave, he said, Tree, tree, with what shall I bless you? If I had to say that your fruits shall be sweet, your fruits are already sweet. If I say that your shade should be pleasant, your shade is already pleasant. If I say that a stream of water should flow beneath you, a stream of water already flows beneath you. Rather, I will bless you as follows. May it be God's will that all saplings which they plant from you be like you. So it is with you. With what shall I bless you? If I bless you with Torah, you already have Torah. If I bless you with wealth, you already have wealth. If I bless you with children, you already have children. Rather, may it be God's will that your offspring shall be like you. Etta, you embody the shining essence of Torah. You dedicated your life to the center and the larger Jacksonville Jewish community. Your home was always a place of haknasat orchim, embracing guests and sharing your love with your magic. Modest material wealth you accumulated through your devotion and conscientiousness. Emotional wealth, you had endless sums in the breadth of your soul. And children, you, dear Etta, raised two very precious and talented souls in Sandy and Heidi. The two of them are a testament to the magnificent human being that you were, principle-centered, sincere, empathetic, strong, endlessly caring. May your knowledge, goodness, and insatiable curiosity have ripple effects always. And may all of your descendants, especially your cute, intelligent, and delicious grandchildren, be exactly as you. Etta, you made life so much sweeter for all of us who had the privilege of knowing you, and you consistently reaffirmed my faith in the goodness of humanity. I love you and miss you already, Etta. You will always have a special place in this rabbi's heart. May you continue to be an inspiration to all of us, and may your soul be bound up in the bonds of the life eternal. Rest in peace, dearest Etta. In abiding love, endless admiration, and eternal friendship, your Rebbe son in Jerusalem, Matt.
The Jewish philosopher of the 11th century, Bachya ibn Pakuda, once observed that days are like scrolls. What we write on them is what others remember. Of course, a millennium later, we live in the age of social media and email. But these things are the modern analog to scrolls. If they are saved, they provide a window into the relationship we have with other people. I'll return to email in a moment, but let me first provide context. I met Etta Fialow on my very first visit to Jacksonville in March of 2004, when I interviewed with the congregation. There was a lobby reception that evening to which various key congregants were invited, and Etta was always among that number. Her perspective mattered. And she came with a written list of questions for me. I think I answered them correctly, fortunately. 6 weeks later, I returned to Jacksonville with my wife Susan and our eldest son Avichai for a Thursday through Sunday visit. And we didn't stay at Etta's house. It was just a little too far to walk on Shabbat. But I did have more time to spend with her. I found her to be passionate about Judaism and her synagogue. She had opinions, but she wasn't doctrinaire. She was filled with ideas, but ready to listen and learn from others. The day after Susan and I returned to New Jersey, I received my very first email from Etta. I wish I still had it, but the clunky computer that I used to have belonged to my former congregation, and at the time I never thought to print it out. I wish I had. But I do remember in it she told me she hoped I would take the pulpit at the Jacksonville Jewish Center, and she spoke about what a great synagogue it was, and how much it would mean for my kids to be able to grow up in a community like this one. She talked about her love and friendship with Rabbi Gaffney, and how I'd never be bored because she could tell I liked it when people asked me questions, and she would have lots and lots of them to ask. And while there were many reasons I accepted this pulpit more than 2 decades ago, Etta was one of them. Many individuals become involved in a synagogue as their children grow up, and then they drift away. It's not a conscious decision. It's something that just happens. But Etta was deeply engaged as a volunteer, as a leader, but as a traveler also, and a learner. There are folks who collect stamps, coins, Russian nesting dolls, but Etta collected rabbis. And in doing, she literally fulfilled the dictum of Pirkei Avot, the words of Rabbi Yehoshua ben Parachia, Aselecha rav uknelecha chaver, get yourself a rabbi and make yourself a friend. In quite the time-saving step, she combined those two into one. On the day we arrived in Jacksonville, we closed on our house, but since the moving truck wasn't due to arrive for another day or two, our very first address in Jacksonville was the Hotel Etta on Forest Circle Drive. When Inga and Rabbi Gaffney visited, they would always pay a visit to the Hotel Etta. And the same was true for Rabbi Matt Berkowitz and his family, as Chazan shared, and our first several assistant rabbis, Rabbi David Weiner, Rabbi Rafi Cohen, Rabbi Jesse Olitsky. I communicated with them and Rabbi Tillman, and all of them send their love. They too are saddened this day. That bond of friendship that Etta had with rabbis and with Rabbi Kentoff for his many years here. That bond of friendship for me included years of studying together. She was a regular on Shabbat mornings during coffee and Torah, and on Monday evenings in my Talmud class. There were many Shabbat and holiday dinners she spent at my home, not because she was the company we were having. She came when she wasn't company. She was just a friend. On Shabbat afternoons, she would read or play board games with our three boys. They called her Tanta Etta. She would do puzzles with my wife, Susan. To know Etta is to know that she loved puzzles. And to this day, Susan and I often play on the Rummikub set that she gave us. When my mother, Sylvia of blessed memory, moved to Jacksonville in 2008, Etta adopted her as well. The morning after I learned of Etta's death, I sat in my office thinking about this special woman and the many hundreds of conversations I had had with her over 2 decades. But it was difficult to remember even a fraction of them. I felt, as family members often do when they come to my office, they have spent a lifetime with someone, but they can't seem to remember the stories of the times that they shared. They're just overwhelmed with too many. But that's when Bachya ibn Pekuda's phrase came into my head, days are like scrolls, and I thought, yeah, and emails are too. And so over the last 36 hours, I have combed through the hundreds of messages we shared over the years. And it is my plan to save them all. They are but a small way to hold on to this special woman in my mind. And this morning I'd like to share with you some of these conversations. I've grouped them into different groups. Some of them are individual, but many of them represent themes. Like a request from a woman going through conversion who wanted Etta to come and be the mikveh lady. Why? Quote, Etta was really my first friend at the center when I took her Hebrew class. She's very special to me, end quote. A CC of an email sent by Etta. Laugh Out Loud Shabbat has been a great success for us. For those of you who remember Laugh Out Loud Shabbat, it was a crazy idea of mine, says Etta, about 4 years ago. It's geared to adults with no kids at home. I find 12 to 15 good joke tellers to tell one joke after dinner, and then they call on the next person who has been booked to tell a joke. There were numerous emails about adult education, a committee she enthusiastically chaired. She had all kinds of ideas for workshops, scholars in residence, and Shabbat programming. She had the idea that maybe we should have a Shabbat for different professions, to have lawyer Shabbat, doctor Shabbat, public school teacher Shabbat. Still out there, but maybe we will. There were emails about the Foundations of Judaism class, which Etta taught a 4-week unit for a bunch of years, always with suggestions about how to improve the class and the experience. There were stories of growing up in Jacksonville and anecdotes of the many folks, now unfortunately all gone, who made this synagogue a special place. I will always rue the fact that I didn't have a chance to record Etta's history, her oral history. It was scheduled, it was on the books, but the good Lord decided it was not to be. She would have had so much to contribute to the knowledge of our history. There were emails about congregants who were ill, whom she figured hadn't been in touch with the synagogue, but she thought we should know about their situations. There were concerns for congregants who were buried in our cemetery but had no family or friends to erect gravestones. And she wanted to know how we could ensure that their memories would be honored and that we could find a way to place a gravestone. There was an angry email to a congregant of which I received a CC from Etta, taking this person to task for racism. And she wrote, "My mother worked, and for years, a black lady named Annie Mae worked in our home and took care of me. She used to take me to my dance lessons. Along with my parents, Annie Mae probably gets as much credit for my not being a bigot. On those bus rides to the dance studio, we always rode on the long back seat in the bus, and I didn't understand that Annie Mae was not allowed to sit closer to the front just because of the color of her skin. The picture you sent me is racist and vulgar. It mocks how some black people were forced to live. People who use it are bigots, and this is not a word found in my vocabulary." There were dozens of messages about politics and politicians. If you knew Etta, you knew how she felt about certain figures and their supporters. Let's leave that there. There were lots of jokes ranging from the corny to what Etta would call naughty. They weren't so naughty. There was the book she hoped to write, filled with anecdotes about the characters who came into the Judaica shop, the evangelicals looking for anointing oil, priestly shawls, and dormuzes. That's mezuzot. And since she was reluctant to sell items with God's ineffable name, right, a mezuzah, parchment is holy, she would often tell customers that the writing inside a mezuzah said that you weren't Christian and that there was no Trinity. It's true that Shema does say God is one, but that's how she handled that situation. There were messages about individuals who were friends of others in the community who were in dire straits. And these were people she didn't know. People in need of whom she had never met, but she wanted to explore how we could help them. There were lots of emails about Etta's work with Women's League and Torah Fund, her experiences with the resettlement of Russian Jews in Jacksonville back to the 1990s, her thoughts on egalitarian practice, ideas for special Shabbat celebrations, as I mentioned already, her desire that lay leaders play a more active role by attending life cycle events, Shabbat services, and Jewish holidays. There were suggestions for the Religious Life Committee, and so on and so on. There was talk about, in her messages about her chavurah, how it came to be, how she loved all of the people with whom she had shared so many years and so many smachot, as well as sorrowful occasions. Now, I don't want anyone to think that Etta and I primarily communicated by email. We didn't. She knew my door was always open to her, and she would come down the hallway from the Judaica shop. And often I would wander down the hallway to stick my head into the shop and say hello. It was very rare that it ended with just hello. But her emails, framed in her unique Etta style, they were like conversations. I could hear her voice in the words, and reading them over the last 2 days was a source of comfort. Friends, in the last few years, you know that Etta had significant health issues to contend with. She wasn't her old self, and she would admit it. But her fundamental qualities never changed. Her integrity and her honesty, a bluntness of opinion that could be softened because of that integrity. If she was wrong, she would apologize. Her desire to do things the right way, to make people love and feel good about the synagogue that she so loved and invested so much of her time and energy in over the years. There was a loathing of bullies and bigots, and a deep love and loyalty to friends and family. Etta, you were my congregant, but you were my friend. You were my student, but you were also my teacher. We shared joyous and sad moments. A wedding, b'nai mitzvah, a funeral. I pray that I nurtured you as a Jew and as a person. Certainly you nurtured me as a Jew, and you have made me a better rabbi. Yehi zichra baruch. Rest in peace, my friend. I would be remiss if I didn't share a brief message from Rabbi Gaffney, the very first rabbi that Etta collected. And I know how much Rabbi Gaffney wanted to be here. He asked Etta for forgiveness that he is not able to travel at this point. And Etta, as she liked somebody, she would want that person to officiate at her funeral. She said with Chazan, and she asked Rabbi Gaffney, she asked me at one point or another. The call from Rabbi Lubliner on Tuesday shocked me. I was totally unprepared for the news. It pains me and continues to leave me distraught. I had emailed Etta before Passover to inquire as to how she was doing, what her plans were for Passover, and then to share some gossip. She returned my email saying she was busy and would get back to me after the holiday. I was expecting a different call. Etta was a one-of-a-kind person, a one-of-a-kind congregant, a one-of-a-kind Jewish woman. She was devoted to anything and everything Jewish. She was intoxicated with it. She was an extraordinary volunteer and a supportive and a special friend. As a congregant, she was in shul weekly, challenging me when we didn't remain standing through the Aleinu. As a student, she probably attended every class given, bat mitzvah, Talmud class, classes in Jewish prayer and history. The Mishnah states, lo habaishan lomed, a shy person is generally not disposed to learning or knowledge. Etta was anything but shy. She would have more than 4 questions, and when asking the 5th would say, I have one more. In the dimension of mind, heart, and spirit, there is a danger of staying the same size. Etta never wanted to stay the same size. She was excited by everything she learned. Inga and I traveled to Israel with her on a congregational pilgrimage. Inga's mother accompanied us. After the tour, Inga and I decided to stay a few more days. Her mother had to return. An elderly woman, we were concerned. Etta said, "Don't worry, I'll look after her." And she did. There was always a thirst for Jewish life. In the years that we had scholars and Jewish personalities visiting us at a Shabbaton, Etta was always at their side, a chance to learn something new. Always curious, she peppered Rabbi Lubliner with questions. She had a wonderful relationship with Rabbi Matt Berkowitz, who at the time was with the Jewish Theological Seminary. She was ever ready to play hostess. As a volunteer, Etta was at the center of every aspect of congregational life. As a board member in congregational committees, a devoted leader of sisterhood, loyal to Torah Fund, and had a special love for the Judaica shop, over which she presided, looking after business issues as well as its aesthetics. Etta's life was in tune and in sync with the life of the center. And as she matured and changed and grew as a woman and with knowledge, she was disposed to seeing change and development and growth in congregational life as well. She learned to chant Haftarot. She learned to read Torah. She exulted as women took their rightful place in the synagogue. And as for me, Etta was more than a congregant. Our relationship was of a different order. She shared with me the joys and the challenges of life. She often cited one of my favorite quotes, a line from Ernest Hemingway, who said, "The world breaks everyone, and afterward many are strong in the broken places." Over the years, I witnessed Etta getting stronger in the broken places that sometimes appeared. Etta drew her strength from family and friends. She spoke to me often regarding the strength and character of her mother Charlotte of blessed memory. She drew strength from memories of the warmth and tenderness of her grandparents. She honored me when she wanted us to attend your wedding, Sandy and Craig, to share the chuppah with Rabbi Lubliner, and continued to keep me informed with excitement at the smachot and milestones in the lives of grandchildren Hank, Andy, and Nikki. She treasured the days and hours she shared with you, Heidi, and the happiness of a closer and richer emotional connection. The rabbis have a thought for a moment like this. They say, "Chaval al de'avdin," woe to us, for those who have gone will never be forgotten. You, Etta, a proud mother and grandmother, a dear friend to so many, a personal friend to me, will not be forgotten. May your memory be for a blessing. I'd like to call on Sandy Shapiro for words of tribute to her mom.
Hello, as my mother would say. Thank you all very much for coming. Before I begin, I want to recognize Rachel, who has stood in for me and done so much for me this week, planning and coordinating. I was in Austria less than 48 hours when I got the call that I had to come home. So forgive me, but this message is brought to you by caffeine and Pfizer. My mom would love to see everyone here who knew her as Pudge or Etta Sue, Etta Fialow, Etta Drashin, the lady in the Judaica shop, back to Etta Fialow, Tanta Etta, or Softy together in one room. There's a lot of love in here. So as long-winded as my mother could be, especially through some very passionate filibuster emails, she did not like long funerals. I am only covering her role as a community member, a mother, and a grandmother. I will try to keep it short, but I should warn you, it was my mother who taught me how long short actually is. Everyone knew Etta. My mom loved her communities, and she had multiple communities more than almost anything. She had this amazing ability to connect with people and remember birthdays and phone numbers. She has a story about everyone, and as heartwarming as that sounds, I have dirt on 3 of you. I'm kidding. There's more than 3. The outpouring of support this week has been tremendous, and it has meant so much to us. I have loved reading and hearing the stories and how proud she was of Heidi and me, even though still to this day, Mom, I really don't think you know what we do for work. But really, we are the proud ones. We are humbled by all the phone calls, texts, emails, deliveries, hosting of out-of-towners, reaching out, everything. It still feels very surreal. I can still feel her presence, especially in this building. I'm emotional because of the support. I don't think this has hit me yet. When I think of my mom, I remember her as a die-hard bulldog who bled red and black, and I am happy for her that they won the national championship this past year. She was methodical and systematic, and she loved to organize and label. Everything had its place. She was neurotic about cleanliness. Restaurant silverware was never to directly touch the table because the same rag was used to wipe the table as it was to wipe the seats, and that's just gross. If a sock from the dryer falls on the floor, it is dirty and it goes back into the laundry, only to be washed and worn on the floor. But heaven forbid it touched the other clean socks. We have our beach place. And so Elaine occasionally, living in the same building, would come over, and I would be folding the laundry, and I know a sock would drop on the floor, and I would look at her, and I would tell her, you have to swear not to tell my mom I just did that. She loved learning about Judaism, but not so much in the religious sense. She took a great interest in the philosophical perspectives of what was right and what was wrong. She often told me that the Torah was more like Aesop's fables, but with so many different morals to each story. She absolutely loved being with her grandkids, Hank, Andy, and Nikki, and to play Rummy Cube and complete puzzles with them. She opened her home to so many strangers who became instant friends, and she welcomed everyone. She was great at a lot of things, but most of us know she was terrible with technology, and I'm sorry if she never responded to any of your texts or voicemails. We definitely tried teaching her. My mother has always loved running a store. In St. Augustine, she and my father started the old schoolhouse gift shop, which is still there today. Then she opened Names Etc. in Lakewood, where you could buy anything and have your name placed on it. After this, she followed helping my father run his Polaroid business. And how could I not mention the Judaica shop, and heaven forbid we call it a gift shop, it is not the gift shop, where she volunteered countless hours. She found a lot of purpose in those 4 walls, and it brought her pure joy. She spent so much time there that my kids, when they were little, thought that it was her store and she owned it. Mom, when you told me last year that you were going to retire from the shop this May, this is not what I thought you meant. Shameless plug for Etta, the Judaica shop will be open after the service if you want to make a purchase. I know it would warm her heart to have some record-breaking sales today. Sorry, I do not have any of those homemade coupons, but I believe if you mention the promo code Etta, they might give you 10% off. So how do you sum up someone like Etta, a pillar in our community with many accomplishments? Some people make money and others make a difference. She gave so much of her time and talent to this community. She has been in countless leadership roles, and because we want to keep it short, I'm going to run through them very quickly. Chair of our high school reunion, Jewish Women's Bowling League president, PTA president, Wolfson High School vice president, National Council of Jewish Women's Membership VP, Bargainata co-chair, JFCS Russian Resettlement Program, heavily involved with Hadassah as co-president and records administrator, concessionaire at the Bulldog Club for 12 years, stringing along us to work alongside her. She, again, another shop she used to manage. She helped with the Jacksonville Jewish Reunion, Women's League for Conservative Judaism, International Judaica Shop Chair, chaired the In-Laws Revision Committee, Adult Education Care, VP for both programming and membership. She was a recording secretary, financial secretary, donor chair, membership VP, education VP, and president of Sisterhood. With a degree in education, she taught Hebrew reading and Foundations of Judaism classes. She was our own Ruth Bader Ginsburg, fighting the religious committee and rabbi for the women's rights to rights. She received the Kolot B'Kedusha Award for reading Torah, amongst other awards that are on her wall in her office. She was not the JJC director, but she definitely directed what went on around here. She was heavily involved in her community, and I know I did not mention all of them because I was texting the Chabad at UNF where I work that I could not meet next week because of her passing. And they said, "Who is your mother?" And I said, "Etta Fialow." And they said, "Oh, she helped us with a fundraiser years ago." I mean, things I never know about. She was great at helping and planning, except for maybe this week. Mom, you could have given me a heads up before I left the country. One moment. I am so lucky that we were raised by such a strong, confident, independent woman who showed me how to get things done and not take offense. She was an excellent mother, even when we did not think she was. She did not tell Heidi and me what to do. She modeled it and led by example, and all of our good traits come from her. Etta lived on principle and by the book, and if you looked up integrity in the dictionary, you will see her picture. When she speaks the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and too much of the truth. She is candid and an oversharer, but the only reason she did not overshare her health conditions was because she really did not understand it. She had strict morals and was a rule follower, except when it came to expiration dates on food. She did not believe in expiration dates, which is why we were surprised that she passed. Her tombstone will probably say, Etta Fialow, August 22nd, 1949, Best Buy, May 6, 2024. She would always tell us there are 3 sides to every story: Heidi's side, Sandy's side, and then the truth. 2 wrongs don't make a right. If you do not have time to do it right the first time, how are you going to have time to go back and do it a second time? She would tell us when we point a finger at someone, 3 more are pointing back at you, which is why she always pointed like this. You attract more bees with honey than vinegar, and as a young child, I could not understand why she would want to attract bees. If money can fix it, it is not worth crying over. And Craig, I hope you remember this when our next credit card bill comes. She absolutely would not tolerate a thief or a liar. If you cheated in a game, she would not play with you, and she meant it. My mother never smoked, never drank. She knew how to have good, clean fun, which was usually just keeping busy. My mom was practical. No purse, no makeup, no perfume, no frills. But we all know she had her hair done on Thursdays. She would always tell us the glass is half full and preach to be positive and kind, even though herself, she could be spicy, judgmental, and unfiltered at times. She had her unique way of telling someone that they could do it better. This was her way of telling that she believed in you. She taught us if you don't love it, don't buy it, because it just becomes clutter. Speaking of clutter, according to her, you can never have enough Israeli art or rabbi statues or rabbis speaking at your funeral. Just kidding. It wasn't clutter. She has always invested her energy in everything she could, especially the center, but not to be fooled, as kosher as she was, which started when Heidi and I were teenagers. When we were children, her involvement with the center left us with Taco Bell and frozen TV dinners. Mom was firm but kind and patient. She held us accountable for our actions and taught us about taking initiative. She taught us about admitting to our wrongdoing and apologizing and making it right. She had a very strong work ethic and asked for 3 things: be honest, be nice, and be competent. Education was probably the most important thing to her. Her house is filled with books, of course, categorized by genre with a Dewey Decimal System that she probably created. She was a lifelong learner and a great teacher with a ton of patience. Some of you probably learned to play Rummy Cube or learned to read Hebrew or Jewish foundations because of her. I learned a lot of my teaching abilities for her, and just to be clear, I teach at the university, and I attend all the students' graduations, and so I usually will post something on social media, but I appreciate all the congratulatory comments of those of you who think I have graduated 9 times in the past 2 years. She taught me a lot about parenting, and when kids don't know math, you teach them math, and when they don't know how to read, you teach them to read, and when you don't know how to behave, you teach them to behave. She taught me that you must give your child roots and wings, and it is harder to give them wings. She also taught me that when a child deserves the least, they need it the most. And when I had nothing else to give as a mother, she was always available to give them what they needed. My mother raised two strong, independent girls. As an only child herself who longed for a sibling, she could not understand the dynamics of sibling rivalry. And I have to admit, if you only had one child, you missed out on 90% of parenting. Heidi and I are opposites, and please take note, following the service, she is not the hugger of the family, okay? We probably mostly fought over who was the favorite child. We would call the Judaica shop, and when someone would answer the front desk, they would say, "Who's calling?" And we would say, "Tell her it's her favorite child," leaving her guessing for who it was. And then she would repeatedly tell me, "Sandy, it's you. You are my favorite child." Just kidding. What she would actually say is, "I cannot believe how well you and your sister Heidi turned out. Heidi, Mom clearly doubted us." But we all know who the real favorite children were. That was her sons, my husband Craig and Matt Berkowitz, because they never gave her trouble. And a Jewish mother's dream. One is a doctor and the other's a rabbi. She was so proud of you both, and even though she had nothing to do with raising you, just the mentioning of your names, she beamed. You both brought her such joy in her life, and she loved talking about you both. You guys are definitely in the limelight in her world. Despite our differences, my sister and me, Heidi and I found how we complement one another. As my mother became more dependent on us, Heidi handled all the house and car issues, and I handled all the health issues. I knew we were on borrowed time these past couple of years. Some people asked if she was okay, and I would reply, "You know she's okay if she's complaining about the synagogue and not her health." I would go to her with as many appointments as possible. Her health literacy, despite as brilliant as she was very low, which may have been a blessing. Anything that my sister and I were not able to do, we had her best friend from childhood, Elaine, help pick up the pieces. At some of her appointments, we would have to explain to new medical providers that they would have to talk to her like she's in first grade, because if she ran out of her B12 vitamins, she would probably end up taking 2 B6 pills. I hope my mom knows that I am grateful for Heidi. When people hear how involved she is with my kids, everybody wants an Aunt Heidi. I could not get through any of this without her, and I hope my children, Hank, Andy, and Nikki, will learn to compliment one another also, because when Dad and I are gone, you will only have one another. Softy loves you guys so much, and they were so proud of you. My only disappointment is that you guys did not get more years with her. Hank, she was impressed with your intelligence and determination, and your hugs would make her day. When I would call the shop, she would say, when you were attending school here, "Well, Hank came in and gave me the biggest hug." And she would tell me that Andy and Nikki, every time they saw her, would come in and give her the biggest hug. Andy, I lost my place. 1 second. I did write something about you, I promise. Andy, she talked about how kind you were and how you turned out to be such a wonderful, mature young lady. Nikki, she would constantly tell me how sweet you were, and she loved being entertained by you. I will miss hearing the Etta-isms, such as, "Let me ask you a question," or "Does that make sense?" I mean, am I wrong? I'm going to miss our conversations, even if it was the same conversation that we just had. I still don't feel like you're gone. I feel like I can pick up the phone and call you, and I can hear you in my head. But as she said, the glass is half full. While you may have thought that you still had things to get done before your time, you were planning for years by being a pillar in this community, bringing people together to surround us with comfort. Your legacy lives on in this building, surrounded by this community, and just being here in this room is enough. I do not have any regrets. You knew how much Heidi and I loved you, and we know how much you loved us. I hope that your children and grandchildren will continue to make you proud. I am at peace knowing you are reunited with your beloved parents, and with every day that passes, I know it is one day closer that we will get to see you again. I love you.
Nikki.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And they'll appreciate that it's short. Okay.
Hello everyone, I'm Nikki. Thank you so much for coming here to honor my grandmother, who I called Softy. She was such a beautiful, caring woman and was an amazing person. I would always be excited to go to her house for Shabbat dinner, mainly because of the food, but also because I got to spend more time with my Savta. I want to thank her for all of the memories she has given me, like when we went to Five Below together, just the two of us. Before it was just a Five Below trip, but now it was one of the best times I got to spend one-on-one time with her. And this is for my grandmother. Dear Softy, thank you so much for those times we had together. Thank you for always being up to do puzzles with me, play Rummikub, and letting me have an insane amount of squash. Since I've been told about your death, everything has changed. I feel different, and I can't believe you're not here anymore, but it still feels like you're here. You're physically 6 feet away, yet your soul is millions of miles away. But you're still next to me right in my heart. Thank you for always making your Shabbat dinners with lots of love. And even though you may be gone, the spark you brought into people's lives is not. I've learned a lot in my life. One of the things I've learned is not to take what you have for granted because you will miss it when it's gone. That's it.
Our last speaker is Elaine Mack, long-time, lifelong friend.
I had the honor of knowing Etta for 7 decades. As 3-year-old girls, I doubt either of us could have ever anticipated the lifetime of memories we would have shared. But I think even at that age, we know there was something special about our friendship. Given the number of attendees today, it seems we all felt that special something about our friendship with Etta. As young girls, I remember we would walk from the old JJC to downtown, where we would have to check in with my parents at their store, and then they said we may go shopping or go to a movie. Sometimes we would get lunch. From there, we went on to junior high together, listening to Beatle records, staying up late at each other's houses for many, many sleepovers. At one such sleepover, and Etta still would bring this up to me, especially at the time of the eclipse. At one such sleepover that took place during the eclipse, Etta calmed my irrational fear and reassured me that it was safe for me to fall asleep. I wouldn't go blind if I fell asleep, and I would wake up in the morning and everything would be fine. She was right, but I stayed up, and she stayed up with me. Another thing Etta was right about was matchmaking, as she set me up on a blind date with my husband, Ricky. After I moved home to Jacksonville, she stood by my side as I said I do, with Heidi and Sandy as my flower girls. I hope she knew how grateful I was for her to setting us up over 40 years ago. Etta and I both decided to stay in Jacksonville to raise our families, where our friendship continued to grow as we experienced the joys and tribulations of motherhood. As young girls, Heidi and Sandy would threaten to run away, and Etta would simply respond with, okay, because for the girls this meant calling Elaine and standing at the bottom of the driveway, where Ricky and I would pick them up and drive them around or take them out to dinner until the preteen emotions subsided. All these years later, I am still their emergency contact because they know I would drop anything to be there for them, as I would my own. Etta was a proud alumni at the University of Georgia, and before we knew there would be Florida Gators and a Seminole, Etta had her daughters and mine, all of us, selling UGA merchandise at the biggest college football game of the year. We were fortunate enough to share many summers at the beach, sitting by the pool and playing Rummikub, completing intricate puzzles on her dining room table, and inviting people over for fish fries and even watching Etta beat Tetris 9-5. And back in the day, that was a big deal. We took long walks to the pier and pilings looking for shark's teeth, never letting our aging eyes interfere with a good walk's haul. The long walks were probably a good idea because Etta knew my weakness for M&Ms and always made sure to grab a few bags at the start of the summer to have and eat while we played Rummikub and put jigsaw puzzles together. It truly is a blessing to watch our children now grow and watch their children and nieces and nephews, as we once did, creating memories they will cherish for years to come. I remember when I first brought my twins over to their house, and they were tiny. Sandy and Heidi took out their little baby strollers, doll strollers, and we put our daughters in them, and they just thought that was the neatest thing. We've got real baby dolls. If Etta believed in something, she was committed to it and took great pride in sharing her joy with others. It was though she was able to channel that pride and turn it into energy, as I recall dancing the hora and otherwise celebrating late into the night at our daughters' bat mitzvahs and later their weddings. You could sense her pride as her grandchildren participated in holiday events, attended Martin J. Gottlieb, and were called to the Torah as bar and bat mitzvahs. She was heavily involved in many of the mitzvah projects at the center, channeling her great memory and organization skills to help others. I remember helping her work with the Jewish Russian immigrants when they came over, and she had her heart. I mean, we would collect things from anywhere we could get them. She really did a phenomenal job, also serving on various boards and committees. She steadfastly worked at the center gift shop for years, and if anyone couldn't reach her, they knew it was safe to say she would probably be keeping herself busy at the center. Etta understood she could make a difference in people's lives by being there for them during otherwise difficult times, and zealously shared principles from her knowledge of Judaism to help guide and serve as a light to others. Simply put, she thrived in the environment rich with culture and traditions, and through her ardent beliefs, she enriched the lives of those who are fortunate to know her. I will cherish the lifetime of memories we shared, challenge myself to serve others in her honor, and know her memory will be a blessing. I miss you and love you.
At this time, Chazan Holzer will chant Eloha Slichot, a memorial prayer for Etta, Bat Chaim Vitzilia, our friend Etta.
Eloha Slichot, Chanun v'rachum, Erech apayim rachesed, Hamatzich haravai pesha v'griyasha melcha nichona, Dachat chan v'ashchina. V'malo kiroshim tohorim, Kizohar harakia, Mazirim. And Nishmat, Etta Bat Chaim Vitzilia shalcha le'olama, Ana lebal rachamim, Zachar la l'tova, Go zechuyot emetzgot ha'aratzot ha'chaim, U'rachla sher tzedek v'ora, Sharechem l'machanina, V'seder gnafecha, Asir elio olamim, U'tziror b'tziror ha'chaim nishmata, Adonai hu nachalata. v'tanuach, v'shalom mishkava, v'nomar amen. God of forgiveness, you are gracious and compassionate, patient and abundantly kind. Grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure. To the soul of our beloved Etta Fialow, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask to remember all the worthy and righteous deeds she performed. May her loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And we say, Amen.
Amen. In a moment, we'll offer the closing prayer. Those who are continuing on to the cemetery for the interment, please follow the directions of the staff of Hardage Giddens regarding lining up. We'll ask, as the casket is accompanied out of the sanctuary, followed by family, for everyone else to please remain here in the sanctuary until the casket and members of Etta's family have had a chance to exit. The Sudat Havra'ah, meal of condolence, will follow here at the center at the conclusion of the interment at the New Center Cemetery. And Shiva begins today. There will be minyan. Family members will be here during the week of Shiva at our minyan at 6:45 p.m. That will be this evening. Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday evenings as well. Family will also be here at 6 o'clock, about 45 minutes before minyan, for those who would like to come early and spend time expressing condolences. Finally, those who would like to honor Etta's memory with a gift of tzedakah may do so either to the Martin J. Gottlieb Day School or Women's League of Conservative Judaism's Torah Fund. And there is information available in the email, the constant contact that was sent out yesterday. This time I'd like to ask the pallbearers to please come forward, for everyone to rise. El Shaddai, Almighty God of the living and the dead, send comfort to your children who grieve. Overcome by the pain of loss, they need your help to focus on the positive and the joy in Etta's life. Help them to meet sadness with courage, to face sorrow undaunted. Help them to treasure what is now theirs because Etta lived. Should despair threaten or faith falter, sustain us all, Adonai, for you are our refuge and strength, our ever-present help in troubled times. And let us say, Amen.
Shir lamalot, Yisayna eleharim, me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai, Oseh shamayim haaretz, Al yitei lamor raglecha, Al yanum shomrecha, Hine lo yanum lo yishana shomer Yisrael, Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilecha yarei yiminecha, Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka v'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmorecha mikora, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzidcha u'voecha, mi'ata v'ad olam.